Golden retriever named Stella is now part of legal history in British Columbia. The upper court has ordered shared custody of the dog using new provincial laws recognizing pets as family members. The ruling is the first of its kind. It stems from a claim by a woman seeking exclusive care of the dog after she and her boyfriend broke up last year. The judge ruled that the Golden retriever be split evenly on a week-on, week-off basis between the former couple. The decision comes 3 months after changes were made to the BC Family Law Act to help decide pet custody. For more on this and what it could mean for pet owners right across the country, we are joined now by Victoria Schroff. She is Canada's first King's Counsel in animal law, and she also played a key role in BC's new legislation surrounding animal custody. So, Victoria, thanks for joining us. How significant is this ruling around Stella?
Well, it's the first of its kind from an upper level court, as far as we know. And it's, basically showing us how the court is starting to interpret BC's groundbreaking new family laws that account for pets as family members.
So before BC passed this law, what did these custody battles look like before? Or were they even custody battles?
Right. Before, they were basically best ownership battles. So whoever's name was on the bill of sale or on the adoption papers was the owner. And that's largely the case throughout Canada. So it was not unique to BC. This is really what the law is in most provinces. Now, there have been outlier cases, of course, as there would be. But we have seen these cases. In Canada, pet custody is not new, although it seems like it's new. We've had cases going back to 1980, Rogers and Rogers. It was splashed all over the headlines at the time in the papers then, and it was a couple fighting over their dog. So it's not to say it's new, but when we have laws like this, they are reflecting society, and they are saying animals matter. They are not something, they are someone, and they are key members of our families.
So how would this play out in court? Is it much like a child custody battle? You'd have to make arguments about where, is the best home for the pet, and if you can provide for the pet, et cetera?
Right. So there are 8 new factors that the legislation outlines for what a court needs to consider. And that can be an upper level court, or it can be the provincial court, which is our lower level court. And what those factors suggest that a court does, actually not just suggest, they say must, it's imperative, that every factor beyond only who acquired the pet. There will be factors such as who can best care for the pet. Is there a bond between a child and the family pet? So the relational and contextual analysis is now being done, whereas it wasn't done before. We were looking at a best ownership test. So now we're looking at a best interest for all concerned type of test. So we're looking at way more factors, 8 factors to be precise, and saying these need to be considered before we decide who gets the pet upon marital dissolution.
Yeah, and we're looking at pictures of Stella right now, but to be clear, this is not just dogs, this is all animals, all pets. Do you see these new laws in BC surrounding pet custody spreading to other provinces?
I do actually. I think that there's been a tremendous amount of interest in these new laws that have only been enacted since January 2024, as you said. They're 3 months old, and they are, of course, very interesting to everybody across the country who cares about animals. And frankly, as you know, most people consider an animal to be a family member, especially we're talking about companion animals. We're talking about cats and dogs
Sure.
and hamsters and horses. I'm not talking about animals used in agricultural settings and also guide dogs, though they are specifically excluded from this. So we really are talking about, as I say, animals you're likely to find in your living room. Which is not to say a chicken cannot be a companion animal, because some people are using chickens as companion animals as well.
So we could see a chicken custody battle at some point. Okay, let me ask you about what's that?
You might.
You might. Okay. Well, that would be an interesting story. There has been criticism. Let me ask you about some of that. Some of the legal fields say that the courts are already backlogged with cases involving human custody, and now these animal custody cases will be jumping into that pool as well, creating even more of a backlog within the court system. What do you say to that criticism?
I've been hearing that criticism for 24 years. as an animal law practitioner here in Vancouver. And my answer is always the same. People go to court to fight over boats and houses and Rolex watches and whatnot. Why can't we argue over sentient beings? And in fact, I'm in good company in saying that, because the Newfoundland Court of Appeal that issued one of the most important dissents in animal law history in 2018 was in a pet custody case. Justice Hogue said that, I think that we need to start looking at animals and not just saying, it's like deciding who gets to keep a bicycle. She said, we need a more nuanced approach. And the idea that courts are clogged and can't deal with it is ridiculous. Courts are very accustomed to dealing with opposing points of view. They are well placed to do it. And why wouldn't you be able to fight over a sentient family member? Now, I say that with the caution that I always encourage settlement. And I think that's a really important piece here. And the legislation builds that in as well. So people can enter into private agreements. You can tailor whatever you want in a private agreement, as long as both parties agree. And then you can have exactly what you want happen with your beloved family member, your furry one.
Furry one indeed. Okay, very interesting discussion. Appreciate you being here, Victoria. That is Victoria Schroff, Canada's first King's Counsel in animal law.